Welcome.
Week number, what are we on? Week 76 now? Does that sound good?
I think it's 77, 76,
Okay,
somewhere in
yeah.
there. Yeah, I'm not sure.
Cool.
Yeah.
Cool. Uh, we are the Reboot coming at you with another episode this week. David's topic is, again, some of these topics come from recent experiences or concerns, and it's just topical, and this is where we are today. Are you following your paid professional's advice? And we'll get into that in a couple of minutes. I am Brian Bracci. I am with B&L PC Solutions. I am based out of Long Island, New York.
And I am Dave Groot with WinStar Technologies. We're based out of Culpeper, Virginia.
Cool. All right. So, kind of what we put in the description there, paid professional it doesn't necessarily have to relate to IT, but in our case, it does. But paid professional is any professional that you're paying for advice. And that could be legal advice. It could be a doctor giving you advice. It could be an IT professional giving you advice, which we give a ton of that.
Mhm.
And I do tend to agree with David that a lot of times we'll get asked things and we will make recommendations and it falls on deaf ears or they go in a different direction, and sometimes there's not even a conversation back with you on why
Mhm.
that happened. And more often than not, it's a lack of understanding what they're being advised to do, and especially with all this the regulations that are coming out and compliance issues. This stuff is not something that should be taken lightly by any means. It's
Right.
real advice based on our knowledge and our experiences and our expertise in these areas and our learning, because it's changing for us too. So if we say something or we advise something, it's based on not only it could be NIST compliance, but it's based on could be best practices or other things that we just have experience with. So,
Mhm.
Dave, I'll let you kind of get
Sure.
into a
No,
little bit too.
I want to start by saying that we are in an industry that can really affect the performance of a business, right? IT is a critical, it's an essential piece to most businesses out there. And I'm not saying that it's more important than the business itself or anything like that, but it's part of everything, right? It's in it all. And so it becomes a valuable thing. I find myself in many cases needing advice from professionals, and I then tend to try and take that advice because I don't have the experience to draw on that a professional does, right? But what I see too often in recent cases, I have one case study that to talk about where we have a particular company and they stand to benefit hugely by implementing IT and technology correctly. They were a company that grew rapidly, and as we see in many cases, things kind of happen band-aid approach, right? We start out, it's small, we got a couple things, then we add a few more, we do this, that, and the other. We get into what I call technology debt, and we're now behind the scenes because we're behind the times because we haven't been maintaining and administering and
Sure. Yeah.
managing and watching and all those things that come along with that. And so when you're getting advice from your executive team that is completely contradictory to the advice you're getting from your IT, either team or provider, you need to sit back and evaluate what is the motivation of both sides. Okay. And I know I'm sounding lecturish here, but I got to get this out because I
It's
want
all
people
good,
to
man.
understand. IT has somehow gotten a bad reputation that guys like us who run IT companies are out to just sell you things, widgets, toys, or whatever. And that really, it's not important. It's not necessary. None of it. We're just trying to make it look hard. We're trying to make it, I don't know where that came from. It seems to be somewhat of a perception of a lot of folks who are, I'm going to say the word, ignorant to what it is that's going on. And so you don't take marriage advice from somebody who's been divorced 3 times, right? You don't
Unless you
take,
want to know what not to
well,
do.
unless you want to know how to get divorced. I mean, like if you want the marriage to work, that's not the person to talk to, right? If you want financial investment advice, you don't go to the corner where somebody's homeless and you ask them what they did right. You go to somebody who's very successful, who has money, who does this for a living, and can then give you good sound advice.
Right.
So don't, when you don't have the knowledge of what the technology can do for you, and your executive team doesn't either, and they're giving you opinion-based information that isn't correct, you need to, like, somehow, how do we get a third party involved, right? Like, how do I make somebody understand we're coming from their best interest? I'm telling you these things not because it matters to me, but because it matters to you. And I know what it means to own a business, and I know what it means to lose money. I know what it means to not be profitable. Those are not things a business owner wants to be. Right. So why is it that you feel like you don't want to listen to those folks? And it goes down to every aspect of it, right? How much money to spend per month? How can I cut this corner? What do I do? Well, what do you mean you want to sell the computer for this amount? I can get one for half that price. Yes, but the money you lose in productivity, and it dies in 2 years versus 5. Like, we have reasons for the basis and the recipes and the things that we're using and doing, because we know way more about it than you'll ever know.
Even
on top of that,
yeah,
go ahead.
I was just going to say, sorry to interrupt, but even when it's in plain sight, I met with somebody this week, and his response to me was, your numbers are double what I'm paying now. And I said, understood. I said, but apples to apples, we're not. I said, I'm going beyond. I'm providing you, 5 other services that you're not getting now, plus the services that they are providing you. You have 47 vulnerabilities right now that are critical. And we discussed in detail what they were. That conversation either fell on deaf ears, or you're just looking at numbers and not listening to the facts and what we're going to do to mitigate these issues. But they're real. So you want to pay X amount per month for shitty service, and that's what you're getting.
Right.
Which
is where this bad rap comes from. I'm sorry, but that's what it is. Go ahead, finish. Sure.
And then on the flip side, it was like dealing with, I'm not gonna name the industry or the client, obviously, but or the prospect, going over some regulations that they have to have by the end of the year, and that was the driving force for them to reach out to us to get a proposal. And then in sitting down reviewing everything, filled checked every box from the compliance and security side, and basically says, what can we do? What can we take away here? I said it's like a Sophie's choice. What do you want to? What vulnerability do you want to open up? Pick it.
Right.
Because this is what you need. This is the requirements and regulation. We can't. And it wasn't like I wasn't holding a gun to his head. Like, this is the price. Right. And it's like, this is the reality. This is what it is.
Brian, I met with a prospect 4 weeks ago. It was an insurance agent. And we did an assessment, an insurance cybersecurity assessment for the insurance agent's office. Mm-hmm. And they basically were failing about 80% of the requirements that they put on their clients, but that they're not.
They don't meet the requirements. Yeah.
So when we had the conversation, I obviously discussed an action plan, and I was met with, well, that's a lot of money. And I mean, like, I want you to understand, we were talking like a couple $100 a month.
Right.
I'm not like getting nuts here or anything.
Yeah.
And they were like, how is it that small businesses are going to be able to afford this? This isn't right. And I said, well, okay, tell the hackers that. Like, what do you want me to do for you on that one? Like, yes, it does cost money, but it costs money to have a mobile phone. It costs money to have coffee every day. Your network infrastructure, your data, your client information all has value. Your company has value. Do you want to lose that? Is it not worth spending a little bit of money to protect it? When you buy insurance for your car, is that because why? Because you're just told you're supposed to do it? No, you do it because you don't want to have to pay for a brand new car when somebody totals the one you have. Like, what are we
Yeah.
doing here?
Yeah. It's crazy because I do see that. I mean, there's a lack of, I don't know if it's comprehension, understanding, but
It is
again,
somewhat,
and
yeah.
it is, and we're like,
It's ignorance, and I'm not saying that in a negative way. They
right,
just don't know,
and
and so
it's
they choose to ignore. And that's, I
yeah,
guess, why I want to stand on a box today and scream, because you can't.
yeah,
That's a bad plan.
and all this, all these, all these services. I mean, cost us money. It's not like we're going in
Yes.
there and just charging, and then we're pulling in all this. It has nothing to do with it because we're able to give, at least in our cases, we're able to give extremely competitive pricing because of the volume that we do with these vendors. You want to
Right.
go some of these you can go with direct with very few of them. Most of them want
Yeah.
to go through the channel, but
Right.
you go direct to, again, you go to, so we're pretty transparent with a lot of it. You go to Microsoft for your licensing.
Hmm.
It's the same price that we charge.
Yep.
It's all there, and our other products are the same thing. The retail on a SentinelOne license, whether it be complete control, let's say it's $5. I mean, that's what we're charging. You know what?
Right.
And it's
Right.
like,
Nobody's looking to just rip them off or rape them. And
no,
look, there are definitely businesses out there that are looking to do that. But you're right. I mean, it, it, but it goes even further than the security stack. I mean, it just comes down to general stuff. Like for instance, had a recent situation where brand existing company bought a new space,
hmm,
moved from one location to another.
yep,
So new space had to get construction and such, model walls, all that kind of thing done. And as a part of that, all new wiring and such and cabling was pulled. And then we put in, managed switches and firewall. We connected two buildings together by fiber between the two. And we got, voice over IP phones and, set it all up the way it's supposed to be done, the way things are going in the world today. And they move all their stuff. And when I talked to the people, I asked them when they were doing the cable pulling, I said, look, everywhere you're going, I want 2 drops. And they're like, yeah, we're just going to do one. No, I want 2 drops everywhere you're going because you're like, we're going to need them.
yep,
No. So they pull one everywhere. So then we're trying to segment the network. We're trying to do VLANs. And I come in and they pulled an old non-managed switch from the old location and they slapped it under the counter and plugged in all their printers and credit card machines into this unmanaged switch and then jacked it into one jack, which went to my managed switch with VLANs and tags. And it didn't know what the heck to do with any of it because it didn't pass VLAN tags. It didn't pass, wasn't letting anything go. And
yep,
none of it worked.
yep,
And I'm just like, so Monday comes around, first day of the new store opening up, and everything is still kind of not quite the way it should be. And I finally decomplexed the network. I made it flat, pulled out all the VLANs. That I was just like, you know what? The hardware that they're using parallel converters to Ethernet for the backup receipt printers that are older than my son.
hmm,
And I'm not kidding.
yeah,
When they're made by D-Link, I'm
yep,
telling you, they're every bit of 18 years old. I'm like, look, you got a brand new space. We put in a brand new high-tech network. We put in everything to protect you, to set you up for PCI compliance, for security. And inside of 10 minutes, because you wouldn't listen to me and you didn't do the things I asked, you bastardized this entire thing.
yeah,
And now you got nothing. And I'm just like, it makes me sick.
yeah,
Because not for me, what makes me sick is their perception is that the stuff wasn't working on Monday.
right,
Okay.
right, yeah,
Right.
yeah, yeah,
And
yeah,
whose fault was it? And he looked at me and said that. And
yep,
I said, listen, now is not the time you want to have that conversation, but we can, because I'll talk to you about why it happened this way
right,
very clearly.
yep,
You didn't do what the professional told you to do. And instead, you thought you were smarter. So you did it your way. And then you got this. That's all I got to say.
yep, yep. It happens, man. It does.
That's
It's
right.
unfortunate, and I think that,
It's too bad. I mean, I wanted it to be beautiful. It was supposed to be a really good thing.
but so again, we could tell these tales all day. It's
Yes,
like
I
it's
know.
I gave a proposal, again, to a different prospect, sent me over a proposal for a server that his current person proposed,
Mhm, mhm.
sent it to me. I looked at it and I said, okay, this is it's a D-Link or you know, one of those lower end cloud managed switches. I'm like,
TrendNet or
I
something
don't
or
want to use
another.
that. I said, I'm here's if just for transparency here's my pricing on that to you. I don't know what theirs is, but here it is, just to show you. I know I'm in line or cheaper than them, and I probably think I even went below. You know what I mean?
Sure.
Below MSRP, just to kind of show them
Just right.
But
Yeah.
the server was like, it was so. And we had a conversation prior to me even proposing, and I said, "You're in a single server environment. There's a need here. There's the amount of the size of the network. I'm going to do virtualization VMware and give you two servers. You know, the hardware is the hardware. The hardware that they spec'd out was fine. We spec'd out the
Mhm.
same hardware. I spec'd out two VMs on it and went that way. And he said that it's higher. You know, the other guy said we don't need two. You know, I said, well,
Okay.
that's fine. I said, but you're the situation you're in now, and the fact that I'm here, there's something misaligned, something wrong somewhere.
Right.
And this is the same one that had all the vulnerabilities on their network.
Right.
So and it took him a month and a half to quote. It's like you have all these signs. I said, you asked me, you had to quote the same day. I said, we quote the same. This is the level. So along with that, though, along with being a professional and providing services, is that level of service that client I told you about earlier
Mhm.
that we got today.
Yep.
Literally, we talked to them yesterday for 15 minutes on the phone about a problem they had. Didn't know who they were. They got one of our postcards, whatever. Went on there, looked at it, and identified within 15 minutes that it's an issue with the operating system. We can wipe. We can do this or that. He told me today the reason he's signing with us. He said because the other company spent 2 days, 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. on the computer, rebooting, doing this, doing that, and did not come to any conclusion.
Well, I mean, that's just silly on so many levels. I can't even begin
You
to.
can't even.
I mean, like our rule here
But
is
when
if
you
you
have nowhere
spend
to
more than
turn,
40 minutes
that's your
working on a
guy.
piece of hardware, we're reloading it anyway. I mean,
That's your company. That's your trust.
Yeah.
Right.
No,
So there's
I
a
know.
level there, and it's so you're talking about. So maybe people have gotten burned, like in that scenario. You know what? This guy spent
Sure.
2 days on it. You spent 15 minutes. So who do you trust?
Well, look, and it's not to say we can't make mistakes, right? I mean, certainly we're not.
I'll speak for yourself, David.
Well, okay, I'm not necessarily going to say that we don't always get it, every time it's perfectly right and stuff. And yes, I have worked on problems that should have been fixed sooner. But I can tell you, as a general rule of thumb, that's not the way it goes around there, and that's just not. I mean, if like again, here's the way I look at this, right? And this is how it should be approached. My perspective, I'll give it, it's an opinion, but look, what's best for the company, not me, the client, the company, right?
Yeah.
So you got a computer, it's not working, which means there's a person who's sitting there who's not working. So I'm paying somebody to sit there doing nothing, and I got
100%.
a guy that I'm paying to sit there and fix a computer that's doing nothing. And after the first hour of that, I'm about done with it all, right? It's either give me a new computer or wipe this one out and start over, because what are we talking about 2-3 days? If it's a desktop computer, there is nothing to talk about. It takes 10 minutes to load Windows up on a machine anymore. So like, it isn't like it used to be in the old days. I would rather just reload it. It's quicker. I mean, and then I know it's done. You know what I'm saying? Like, there's just nothing to talk about. So anyway, it's a perspective. It's just the way people do things. But like, why waste time?
Yeah,
that's not good for the company.
It's on so many levels, and it's just was astounding to hear that the way that we're able to do things today is that I had to hear that. It's kind of like, and I kind of preface a lot of my when we pitch, if that's what you want to call it, but it's if in 15 minutes this guy, one of the guys, can't handle it, can't resolve it, it's above their scope, it's passed on. There's not, and you're not on the phone for an hour with a client as you try to work on something. And that was one of the other things that we've heard about. It's like, no, we identify and we troubleshoot and we resolve and mitigate the issue. And it's kind of what we, and to hear something like that as recently as yesterday, like, wow, that's crazy. That's,
I got to say, there is a definite world of IT out there that we are not aware of any longer. And I'm not saying we don't know about it, but like look, I'm sorry, we've taken this industry seriously. We've learned, we've continued to educate ourselves, our teams,
We're
our
constantly
businesses. We've
training,
continued,
absolutely.
we're,
Yeah,
we're growing, we're, you know, in cybersecurity, all these things have become very important and big, but a lot of IT providers did not move along with that wave. And they're left in the dust and they don't understand what it is that they're even talking about anymore. And I'm not saying that to be mean or ignorant or rude or anything about competition, or I don't think there is or should be competition in this industry. I think there are so many things that we need to be doing as an industry. We should all be working together on some level. Yes, we have to have businesses, but I mean, like, why do I have to worry about having a competitor in town? No, that competitor, like, I can't take care of everything in town. It just
yeah,
can't happen.
yeah,
Like, you know, there's more than enough work out there. This is a real thing. Cybersecurity, the battle, the war, I get on stage all the time. I tell people we are in the middle of World War III. This stuff really means something. Nobody's exempt from being a target.
nope,
Russia would love nothing more than to destroy our economy. Like China would just love that. Like, don't think that they don't want to see that take place anytime, everywhere, and we're
absolutely.
all a part of
Yeah,
that equation.
yeah. And I think something that we've seen, David, is when we go and it doesn't matter how we get the lead or the prospect, we go and talk to them,
Sure.
and we give pricing, and like I mentioned earlier, it's there's that there's more often than not there's a shock value on
Mm,
price.
right.
And my response to that is go get like you should do, go get two or three other prices, because I know where I am and I know where
Right.
we are and I know the level of services that we're providing or proposing.
Yes.
You may be locked in for years with a crappy provider, and they're just not, like you're saying, they're like dust in the wind. They're not
Mm,
changing. They're not adapting. And there's a reason that you're calling us, right?
right.
So whether it be for a new regulation or something that they can't provide you, there's no proactiveness, whatever it is. But don't
Something
now
triggered it.
look at me like I'm coming out here from left field no get and a lot of times they don't. I hate to say it. I know that they're not getting other pricing. I'm working with someone now for probably 6 months, 6 months, right? And it's a high end company, but I talked to him yesterday, and he's very slow moving, travels a lot, so I get
Mhm.
it. But you know, I was like, "Can you let me know where we stand? Are we still like, just tell me no if it's not." I said, "It's." He said, "Oh no, no, I've narrowed it down to three," which was great to hear. And he
Right.
said, "You're still in there," and that's what you want to hear. You know, you want to
Sure.
hear that you're competitive and your services are in line with what you're proposing.
Well, I want to hear that, but I also encourage everybody to understand that to deliver that service and to deliver it
Of
well,
course, yeah, yeah.
consistently, costs money. And so I don't apologize for the prices that
Oh,
I
no.
charge. And if
No,
I
no.
am a little bit higher than somebody else, it's because you're getting better and more from us than you are them. Dollar for dollar, I assure you the value. Like, look, my first thing that I do for clients, and I had a client recently that we were talking about who was complaining about the costs of everything. And when we started their contract, they had 50 people. And they said, well, you know, when we first began this agreement, you said we were going to be around X amount of dollars a month. And I said, that's true. But I also said the only time it'll go up is if you add people, and it'll go down if you remove. And now you have 94 people. So you went from 50 to 94. And yes, the cost went up accordingly. But I'm telling you, there's no way you can pay that same amount of money
Right.
and have internal team that gives you the equivalent coverage and service, and like, it's not gonna
No,
happen.
no.
And so, you know, I don't know, it's just like, I
It's
don't
like
know.
looking at 2 identical cars, look identical. One's
Right.
got a, V8 or a V12, and one's got a V6, and you're like, "I wanna pay the V6 price, but I want the V12,
Correct. Well, how
V8."
come you can sell it to me for cheaper? Right. Yeah.
It's,
And you know, it's very easy to, when you don't understand, like, and I say this all the time, even in my workshops and stuff. Here's the problem in some ways. Executives and entrepreneurs and owners and such, those are very intelligent people, but they're also usually not liking to be not in control, right? So, like, when they don't know something and they have to admit that to somebody
Mhm.
else, that is not a point of power. It's not a point of strength. And so they fight that internally. And I'm just like that. I'm the same guy. So I'm speaking from a place of truth, you know.
Sure.
It's not to say that that's a bad thing, but when you're that kind of a person and you have that kind of responsibility and you're making decisions based on things you don't know about, it can be very nerve-wracking. And so at the very least, get somebody who A, you trust, and B, you know knows what they're talking about. Period.
Couldn't agree more. Couldn't agree
Yeah,
more. And
that's it.
we'll end on that. I think that
Okay.
was.
I'll try and
Yeah.
keep it on a positive note on you. And again, I wasn't trying to be negative here. I'm not.
No, I don't think it was negative.
I say these things because in my inner core, it really does bother me to see people struggle, and it bothers me more when they don't realize why they're struggling, and then there's a perception that is incorrect of why they're struggling.
Exactly.
Those are 3 things I needed to try and check off today, right? So
go.
that's what I'm doing.
You
Thanks, bro.
you did it well. All right.
Thank you.
All right. We'll see you same time next week.
Yes, sir.
All right, Dave.